Hey, this is Prospector Jess. I just thought I'd throw together a quick video to give you an idea. Somebody asked me a question, two questions actually. The first question was, what are we doing in the way of more content for our webinars and Hangouts? And I'm going to go over that in this diagram. The other question related to it was, how do they fit together? And what does this stuff mean in layman's terms? So let me go over a simple outline of the subjects that we've been covering, as well as some we're going to cover in the near future, and that might help. 7 ways to find more gold. That's the overarching theme of what we're going to be discovering through this fall. And I wanted to go over that with you really quickly. So the first thing we did is we've discussed rocks and minerals and how they fit with discovering gold, specifically how rocks and minerals tell a story about where to find gold. Then we covered geology and topology, topography to be precise, but we refer to it as topology. That's the overarching theme of patterns and maps, graphs in math. But topography is how you graph those onto a map to show the graphic nature of your topography. So that's the second thing we discussed. Recently we've talked about tools for sampling and how that all ties together. We're about to talk about hydrogeomorphology. Now the tools for sampling, that's pretty self-explanatory, but hydrogeomorphology, well, you say, what are you talking about? Well, that comes from 3 words, so let's talk about it. This is a little bit of language. So hydro, meaning hydro like hydro or water, water formed or water present. Geo, meaning earth or soil. And morphology, the study of shapes. Ology is a study. What we're talking about specifically with hydrogeomorphology is shapes of the earth that were formed through hydrographic or hydraulic processes. That's water pressure under motion. Think of it as a monitor or a big fire hydrant or something even bigger like a dam breaking loose. This would be flooding like we saw this last fall and spring. So it's one thing to say, how does that fit with gold? Well, the answer is the shapes of what was cut tells you where the gold might have gone. The way it cuts and what it cuts and how it cuts tells you what happens to the gold when it breaks free from load and what kinds of forces would cause it to have enough energy to break free. All of this plays a role in the shape of things, the shapes that you see in the mountains and in the deserts. A lot of people don't realize the major forming factor going on in the desert are those flash floods that happen, especially during monsoonal seasons. Whenever you get these hurricanes, you get monsoons, and whenever you get a monsoon, you get massive flash floods. Those are capable of moving tremendous amounts of soil, minerals, and gold. So it's important to understand. Strategic sampling. What do I mean by strategic sampling? I mean you sample with an idea in mind about how you're strategically going to increase the likelihood that you'll find more gold or find gold at all. So we'll talk a bit about that. Maps and claim strategies. I've had a lot of requests about how do I find out where gold is from and how do I know whether it's claimed or not. And so we'll talk about that whole strategy. That'll be a whole session in its own right, maybe a couple. And number 7, scaling up for production planning. That covers the area where you take all of these 6 items previously and integrate them together to understand whether or not it's worth investing more in equipment. Because tools for sampling is just the start. There's also tools for mining, and those can be quite expensive, especially if you're scaling up to a large-scale mine, as we've seen on TV. So this is a quick overview of the 7 ways to find more gold. Prospector Jess, over now. I'll see you at the next Gold Prospectors Live on Facebook.